Hey friends, we're back again for the fantastic Mr. Fox. Chapter 7. We'll never let him go. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Bean switched off the motor to his tractor and climbed down from the driver's seat. Bunce did the same. Both men had had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving the tractors all day. They were also hungry. Slowly, they walked over to the fox's hole in the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Bunce was cursing the fox with dirty words that cannot be printed. And Bogus came waddling up. "Dang and blast it, that filthy, stinking fox!" he said. "What the heck do we do now?" "I'll tell you what we don't do," said Bean. "We don't let him go." "We'll never let him go," declared Bunce. "Never, never, never," cried Bogus. "Do you hear that, Mr. Fox?" yelled Bean, bending low and shouting down into the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr. Fox. We're not going home until we've strung you up dead as a dingbat." Whereupon the three men all shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath that they would not go back to their farms until the fox was caught. "What's the next move?" said Bunce, the pot-bellied dwarf. "We're sending you down the hole to fetch him out," said Bean. "Get down there, you miserable midget." "Not me!" screamed Bunce, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you saw scarlet gums. You saw more gums than teeth. "Then there's only one thing to do," he said. "We'll starve 'em out. We'll camp here day and night, watching that hole. He'll have to come out in the end. He'll have to." So Bogus and Bunce and Bean sent messages down to their farms, asking for tents, sleeping bags, and supper. Chapter 8. The foxes begin to starve. That evening, 3 tents were put up in the crater on the hill, one for Bogus, one for Bunce, and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the 3 farmers sat outside their tents eating supper. Bogus had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Bunce had 6 donuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste, and Bean had 2 gallons of cider. All 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Bogus picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the fox's hole. "Can you smell that, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. "Lovely tender chicken. Why don't you come up and get some?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up and snatch it right out of his hands?" "Oh, don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want to do." "But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be till we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer them, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Bunce and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of the 2 tractors and shone them into the hole. "Now," said Bean, "we'll take our turns to keep watch. One watches while 2 sleep, and so on throughout the night." Bogus said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and comes out on the other side? Didn't you think of that?" "Of course I did," said Bean, pretending that he had. "Go on, then tell us the answer." There's the tractors. Those powerful beams of light. Bean picked something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. "How many men do you got working on your farm?" he asked. 35, said Bogus. "I got 36, said Bunce. "And I've got 37, said Bean. "That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There will be no escaping from Mr. Fox. So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 men formed a tight ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox or indeed any other animal to escape from the hill. The next day, the watching and the waiting went on. Bogus and Bunce and Bean sat up small stools, staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their lap. Every so often, Mr. Fox would creep a little closer towards the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Then he would creep back again and say, "They're still there." "Are you quite sure?" asked Mrs. Fox. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I can smell that man Bean from miles away. He stinks." Chapter 9. Mr. Fox has a plan. For 3 days and nights, this waiting game went on. "How long can a fox go without food or water?" Bogus asked on the 3rd day. "Not much longer now," Bean told him. "He'll make a run for it soon. He'll have to." Bean was right. Down in the tunnel, the foxes were slowly but surely starving to death. "If only we could just have a tiny bit of water," said one of the small foxes. "Oh, Dad, can't you do something?" "Couldn't we just make a dash for it, Dad? Oh, we'd have just a little bit of chance, wouldn't we?" "No chance at all," snapped Mr. Fox. "I refuse to let you go up there and face those guns. I'd sooner you'd stay down here and die in peace." Mr. Fox had not spoken for a long time. He had been sitting quiet still. His eyes were closed, not even hearing what the others were saying. Mrs. Fox knew that he was trying desperately to think of a way out. And now, as she looked at him, she saw him stir himself and slowly get to his feet. He looked back at his wife. Then a little spark of excitement danced in his eyes. "What is it, darling?" said Mrs. Fox quietly. I've just had a bit of an idea," Mr. Fox said carefully. "What?" they all cried. "Oh, Dad, what is it? Come on," said Mrs. Fox. "Tell us quickly." "Well," said Mr. Fox. Then he stopped and sighed and shook his head slowly. He sat down again. No, it's no good. It wouldn't work after all." Family. Mr. Fox. "Why not, Dad?" "Because it means more digging, and we aren't strong enough after 3 days and night without food." "Yes, we are, Dad," cried the small foxes, jumping up and down, running to their fathers. "We can do it. You will see. I know it." Mr. Fox looked at the 4 small foxes, and he smiled. "What fine children I have," he thought. "They are starving to death, and they haven't had a drink for 3 days, but they are still undefeated. I must not let them down. I suppose we could give it a try," he said. "Let's do it, Dad. Tell us what to do, and we'll do it." Slowly, Mrs. Fox got to her feet. She was suffering more than any of them from the lack of food and water. She was very weak. "I'm so sorry," she said, "but I just don't think I'm going to be much help." "You stay right where you are, my darling," said Mr. Fox. "We can handle this ourselves." I'll stop there for today.